Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio. And now, here's our host, Dr. Vanessa Anceloni.
Dear Kardec Radio listener, good morning to all of you, and to you who is going to listen to this later, good day wherever you are in this planet, because we know we have listeners in more than 54 countries on our planet Earth. And it's a true honor to be here with you, with our friends from Kardec Radio as well, our Kardec Radio team, to nourish your soul. After all, there's so much for us to discover about ourselves and about the laws of life. And today, energy work, mediumship, and we have a Kardec Radio challenge. Did you know about it? Well, go to KardecRadio.com and get to know more about our challenge. If you participate, and it doesn't need to be a whole lot of effort, it's just like answering one question. What is the difference? What is the difference between desiring for others, what we desire for ourselves, and desiring for ourselves what we desire for others? What is the difference? This is a comment that Kardec put together in the Spirit's book. It's something that can be life-changing. And after an evaluation by a committee at the end of February, on the last show of February, February 25th, the winner of the contest on who best explains this difference is going to come to Kardec Radio and live talk to us about the difference. Not only that, but the person will also receive the 6 basic books of Allan Kardec, a true treasure. After all, Kardec is really at the vanguard of humanity. A lot of what has been said by Spiritism has only recently been proved by science. And still, we await further evidence on many other topics that only the evolution of sciences on the earth are going to be able to explain and to prove. In the meantime, we keep on working on it. We keep transforming our lives and the lives around us. So the fact that among thinking beings, there are connections that you do not yet know anything about. Magnetism is at the core of this science, which you will later comprehend better. These are Kardec's own words, dear friends. Where? In the Spirit's book. Question and answer 388. There is a connection between each other on this earth. So what we would like to talk about is the very fact that we have this magnetism. There are people, as Kardec explains, that have more magnetism than others, and they can donate and help other people. How does that happen? We want to know more about it. So to discuss these possibilities, we're going to open the show with an excerpt from the book Living and Loving by the Spirit Mentor Joana de Angelis, entitled Silent Attitude. And after that, we will listen to a beautiful segment entitled Spiritist Moment by Kirsten de Mello to explain a little bit more about mediumship. We're going to give a break and come back to you with a lot more in this very special show of today.
Chapter 10, Silent Attitude.
A popular proverb says, silence gives consent, but this is not always so. Silence is more than mere compliance. Some people consent because they fear conflict. Others consent to avoid fruitless argument or to safeguard personal interests. There is a dynamic type of silence, though. It is wisdom that keeps silent when fools chatter and violent persons yell. Wise people will speak only when asked. Their words clarify and illuminate. Wisdom implies self-balance and discipline. It reveals self-control of one's emotions. We must free ourselves from all base passions because they degrade, consume, and torture. Many people talk without thinking. Careless and thoughtless talking raises conflicts, throws people against each other, and disturbs the community. Silence, however, should not turn into obstinate sulkiness, indifference, or contempt. We advise silence only to avoid idle discussions, fruitless debates, or needless self-defense. To react through hot argument is rather easy, but to listen patiently to aggression and defamation asks for a noble, stoic behavior, an attitude that benefits both yourself and your opponents, spreading peace around you. Forget the evil done to you and do whatever good you can. Your actions will speak for you. If people do not respect you, they will not agree with you anyway. Do not let yourself be disturbed by affront. It usually comes from irresponsible persons who ignore their own limitations. Time is too precious to be wasted on trifles. Praise or approval will not make you a better person. Likewise, insults, abuse, or malice will not lessen your virtues. Attend to your duties and wait patiently. Keep in mind that the allotment of time is the same to everyone, but each person uses it differently. Allan Kardec, who codified the Spiritist doctrine, never paid attention to what people thought of him. Neither did he enter into unprofitable debates. Thought his opponent needed an answer. He offered luminous pages of spiritual wisdom, demonstrating the excellence of spiritualist concepts, grounded on the ethical and moral philosophy of the gospel. These same concepts are now being demonstrated by science through innumerable experiments which enhance a new spiritual awareness, and this awareness will help mankind to reconsider attitudes and feelings so that spiritual ascent may be accelerated.
Hello, dear Kardec Radio listeners, and I am Kirsten DeMello with the Spiritist Moment. This week, we will be discussing and reflecting once again about mediumship, although this week we'll be reflecting from a different perspective. We will be reflecting with Kardec from the book The Gospel According to Spiritism, as well as the Medium's book. Now, in The Gospel According to Spiritism, Kardec talks about the law of assimilation and repulsion of fluids. Now, why is this important in mediumship, we ask ourselves, and more so, we go even further to say, how does this law, and how does the law of thoughts, apply to mediumistic meetings? Well, let's reflect with Kardec. When Kardec explains to us that the law of assimilation and repulsion of fluids in the Gospel According to Spiritism, he describes to us that thoughts emit a fluidic current whose impression can be painful or pleasant depending upon if it's a good thought or a negative thought. And how would that affect a mediumistic meeting? Well, oftentimes in modern day today, we talk about something called holding the current. At many mediumistic meetings, we have the usual mediums who either do psychography or speaking mediums, and there also are participants in the mediumistic meetings, other mediums, who help hold the current. Now, what does that mean? Well, basically it means that they use their ability, their thoughts, to think of positive images, positive things, connecting their minds with the higher spirituality during that meeting to facilitate the work of that evening. Now, why is this important? Well, as mediums, as participants of a mediumistic meeting, we have to be careful what kind of thoughts we have because they affect the rest of those people, whether incarnate or not, during the meeting. How is this possible? Well, Kardec explains to us that each thought emits a fluidic current that makes an impression. So we can imagine if during a mediumistic meeting we're thinking about all types of negative things, things about the day that have nothing to do with the mediumistic meeting. We go even further to reflect with Kardec in the Medium's book. He talks about and he asks the spirit if the morale of a person has anything to do with the actual faculty of mediumship. And the spirits say no. Mediumship is the organic faculty per se, and it's independent of morality. However, the spirits say the same does not apply concerning its use, which can be good or bad according to the medium's character. And he goes on even further. The spirits explain, as well Kardec continues to question further as to what this means. We learn, and you can go and read yourself in part 2 of the medium's book, when we learn with the good and noble spirits with Kardec, that our inner world, our inner morale can attract good spirits or repel negative ones, and vice versa. That our inner world, our thoughts as well, how we live our lives, can attract or repel certain types of spirit. So that is a calling for us as mediums, as participants in mediumistic meetings, to think once again about our own inner world, how we are living day to day. How are we living? Are we taking an inventory of ourselves, of what's going in and out of our minds, our own spiritual nourishment and development? Are we working on that? Because oftentimes in mediumship, people are very impressed by mediumistic phenomenon, and sometimes perhaps may lose sight of one of the most important things in our lives is working on our own selves. These are the reflections we want to share with you, dear friends. Small reflections, but ever most important in our day-to-day lives, whether you participate in a mediumistic meeting or not. Our own inner transformations are of great importance in our lives. As usual, dear friends, we urge you to go and do your own personal study or go join a spiritual center to study more about this topic. And as always, this is never meant to replace your own personal study. And with these thoughts, dear friends, we wish you many blessings. Until next time.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Kardec Radio, live, every Saturday at 11 a.m.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Now available for purchase, the book Chico Xavier, Medium of the Century by Guy Léon Playfair. This is the first biographical and critical study in English of one of the outstanding mediums of all time, through whom more than 450 books were received by automatic writing over a 70-year period, few of which, until recently, were available in English translations. Purchase your copy today at www.roundtablepublishing-uk.com www.roundtablepublishing-uk.com.
The newest edition of the Medium's book by Allan Kardec is now available. Purchase your copy online or via your ebook reader. Simply go to www.edicifamerica.com today.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Join us every Thursday live. Evolution in Two Worlds. A journey of the soul through the teachings of the Spirit Doctor, Andrea Luiz. Connect at www.tvcei.com, Channel 2.
Nourish your souls with Kardec Radio. And now we return to our program.
Dear listener, we're here to talk about energy work, healing, mediumship. What is this about healing, energy work, and mediumship? Because Spiritism has a lot to say, but let us bring an author in the United States of America in the 19th century that is barely known, Prentice Mulford, a great mind of the beyond who has been really mentoring the steps of Kardec Radio. And he says in his book, Thoughts Are Things, the science of happiness lies in controlling our thought and getting thought from sources of healthy life. When your mind is diverted from possibly the long habit of thinking and living in the gloomy side of things and admitting gloomy thought, you'll find, to your surprise, that very place, the side of which gave you pain, will give you pleasure because you have banished a certain unhealthy mental condition into which you before allowed yourself to drift. You can then revisit the localities connected with your past, remember and live only in the bright and lively portion of the past, and reject all thought about sad changes and those who had passed away, never to return, etc. I have proven this to myself, says this very spirit, Prentice Mulford, in his book, Thoughts Are Things. And when we talk about healing, that's what we're talking about, the science of happiness, controlling our thoughts and getting thought from sources of healthy life. Question is, you want to be happy, you want to be healthy, me too, and everybody does, but are we controlling our thoughts? Are we getting healthy thoughts? Have we surrounded ourselves from reading our thoughts of these sad thoughts, sad feelings? Are we substituting them? So, dear listener, we want to share with you that in the Gospel According to Spiritism, as we think about energy work and mediumship, bottom line, we're talking about healing. We are talking about the gift of healing. And chapter 26 of the Gospel According to Spiritism, we have the whole 9 yards of the explanation of the spirits in that regard. And they say, quoting from Matthew chapter 10, verse 8, restore health to the sick, raise the dead, heal lepers, and cast out demons. Give freely what you have freely received. This is the key word for us, dear listeners. Give freely. Many people want to benefit from their mediumship, but you know what? Free mediumship is the only way to go. We really need to be freely giving in order to freely receive. If we trade in healing with money, we're never going to expand. How many people have come to us at the Spirit Side of Baltimore and said, you know, you guys, because you give all this work and the healings, the passes, and the talks, all your services are free of charge, like all spiritist centers that are serious in this planet. You're creating debt to people. Really? Which law is that? Because I have never read or really received a message of that level. So that's why many people ask, why in Brazil we have so many healing mediums? Because they follow through the steps of Kardec, which is freely giving what you freely receive. And if we really want that to happen in the United States or everywhere else, we need to accommodate ourselves into the true laws of life. There is no other way. And the spirits actually said to Kardec at his time that mediumship needs to be free of charge. And let us read some excerpts and discuss from it. Modern mediums, because the disciples also possessed mediumship, also have received the free gifts from God, that of being the interpreters of spirits for the instruction of humankind, to show them the pathway to the good and to lead them to faith, and not to sell them words that do not belong to them, because they are not the product of their personal conception, research, or personal labor. This is a very, very important topic. When we talk about healing and mediumship, one of the spiritual laws of life is the healing comes from within. And when we are mediums and instruments of the spirits, we cannot charge for what we are giving. We can't. Why? Because it's not ours. We are being the interface between the spiritual realm and the material realm. We cannot charge something from what doesn't come from us. And you can tell us, well, but Vanessa, you know what? Well, I give up my time. My question is your time yours? I don't think so. Because God gives you time for free as well. So God doesn't charge you for your time. But Vanessa, you know what? I read all those books, and then when I come and give the healings, or I'm a medium, or I give talks, you know what? I put up my energy. Who gives you energy? Who gives me energy? I don't buy it. It's given to me for free. So I have no excuse, dear friend. There's no excuse to charge for mediumship. There's no excuse to charge for healing. And imagine to charge for prayers. Can you imagine that people ask others to pray for them and their loved ones, and they pay for prayers? This is really, really on the opposite hand of the law of love. We cannot charge others for prayer either. So when we talk about energy work, Kardec says, God does not will for the poorest person to be disinherited from it and to be kept from it by saying, well, I do not have faith because I could not pay for it. I could not have the consolation of receiving the encouragement and the displays of affection of those whom I weep for because I'm poor. That is why mediumship is not a privilege and is found everywhere. To receive payment for its practice would thus be to divert it from its providential purpose. This is precisely what Kardec tells us, and probably some people don't like to hear that. And why? Because the fact of the matter is many people do not want to work in their professional lives and do this like we spiritists do, on our free time, because it takes a lot of effort to really do it. We know it. To have our daily jobs and in the evenings come and do the work free of charge, etc. But you know what? It's needed. That's the only way to go. We have extra merit and credit when we're doing this extra walk of life. And Kardec continues saying in chapter 26, give freely what you have freely received. And it's all about healing, energy work, and mediumship. All those who know the conditions in which good spirits communicate and their aversion for anything that may have a selfish interest, and who know how little it takes to keep them away, can never believe that high-order spirits are at the disposal of the first person who comes along and evokes them for a price at a mediumistic session. Plain common sense rejects such a thought. These are Kardec's very words, dear listener, about mediumship free of charge. Would it not also be a profanation to evoke for the price of silver the beings whom we respect or who are dear to us? Undoubtedly, one can obtain manifestations this way, but who could guarantee their authenticity? Frivolous, deceitful, and cunning spirits, and a whole multitude of unscrupulous low-order spirits will always show up and are always ready to respond to any question asked of them, with no regard for the truth. Thus, those who desire serious communications must first ask for them seriously after certifying the nature of the sympathies of the medium with the beings of the spirit world. Now, for the first condition for attracting the benevolence of good spirits is humility, devotion, selflessness, and complete moral and material disinterest. Dear listener, think about this. How beautiful is this that Kardec talks about this energy work, mediumship, and saying that the foundation of it all, to attract the good spirits, we need to be humble, devote ourselves, to be selfless, and be in total disinterest in terms of moral and material life. Meaning, the good and evolved spirits are not going to come and assist us and guide us if we are charging a whole lot of money for this, or if we're charging a penny, because it doesn't happen this way. I know some people, again, don't like to hear this, but that's the only way to go. If you want to ask us a question in that regard, feel free to call us at 858-769-4705. Kirsten DeMello is here on the screen room to talk to you before we put you on air. So feel free to call in. You can always call in at 858-769-4705. Of course, this is only when we are getting the show live. If you are listening to this after hours, you can always email us at kardecradio@gmail.com, or Kardec@KardecRadio.com, and we'll be glad to answer to your questions. And by the way, we're so happy that so many people have been emailing us, telling us how much they love Kardec Radio. People from all over the world emailing us and telling how much they enjoy, especially the fact that they can listen to it after the show. And they can even download all the shows as podcasts at iTunes. And we love it as well. You can get it at it's one click away from you. Can you believe it? Kardec Radio is just a click away from you. And, one of the reasons why we have Kardec Radio is to nourish people's souls. Because we know suffering today mounts, and we want to give a hand to people. This is actually one of the ways to reach out. By the way, Cynthia Fabretti, who is a good friend of ours, is here, and she is in the chat room of Kardec Radio asking about spontaneous mediumship communications versus invocations. That's a good question, Cynthia. And by the way, Cynthia Fabretti is the coordinator of Spiritism for Everyone at the website of the United States Spiritist Council, spiritist.us, and it happens every Wednesday evening at 9 p.m. and also Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. Go to the website, get to know more. Beautiful study sessions. You can participate as a participant and talking to her. You can also, when they have their proper time, coordinate study sessions based on Kardec's books, The Gospel According to Spiritism and the Spirit's Book. Truly, these are fascinating books. If you want to begin studying it or continue studying it, these are books that should be always at arm's reach, because they are really life-changing, really transformative. So let us go to our questions. Spontaneous mediumship communications versus invocations. What is the best way to go? Kardec talks about it in the Medium's book. And at his time, he was evoking spirits for research purposes. Go to the book Heaven and Hell, and we'll get to know more the reasons why. But should we do it in our meetings? No. He explains the reason why, because when you evoke, you are subconsciously teasing the mediums as well to get into that mode. And if we are not fully prepared, not necessarily we're going to get the answers from the very spirits that we're evoking. We need really to practice sincerity and honesty in our daily lives to really come about as clear mediums in a mediumship meeting. If I am a person who is used to lying in my daily life, as a medium, I have that as an open door for spirits to come and deceive us and be tempted to mystify. So the number one thing for all of us to prevent mystifications and deceitful spirits from coming about is to be honest and sincere in my daily life. But the best way to go is always to allow spontaneous mediumship to happen. Meaning, if we're at a meeting and the spirits come, okay, we allow them to talk through us to the counselors or to the whole group without forcing anything. Evocations are important at very specific times. And at Kardec's time, it was of very specific importance because he was seriously researching on it. I remember 10 or 11 years ago coming to one of our first lectures in the West Coast in Los Angeles, invited by the Allan Kardec Fellowship Society in Los Angeles. And I remember a participant, an attendee of our workshop, said, "Oh, I want to do a research just like Kardec, start from scratch. I want to evoke the spirits and get to know more." What do you think, Vanessa? What we think is this. You don't reinvent the wheel. You don't do what Kardec has already done. You go beyond it, meaning you read it and go beyond it. It's like science, because Spiritism is also a science. Let's say, as Divaldo Franco puts it, a religion and a science and a philosophy. So we accept what has been accomplished already based on our reasoning, and we expand it. We don't reinvent the wheel. It's just a waste of time. By the way, dear listener, we are going to talk more about mediumship, healing, energy work based on Kardec's teachings. And in the meantime, we're going to leave you a break. Think about your questions as well. You can write it to us in the chat room or at kardecradio@gmail.com, or you can come at 858-769-4705, and we can talk to you. You can ask this question live. After the break, we'll be back with you for more. Also, learning how should you prepare yourself before the healing passes. Is it important to do so? We're going to come back, and this segment by Dr. Magalhães is going to respond to this question to you. We'll be right back.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Kardec Radio, live, every Saturday at 11 a.m.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Now available for purchase, the book Chico Xavier, Medium of the Century by Guy Léon Playfair. This is the first biographical and critical study in English of one of the outstanding mediums of all time, through whom more than 450 books were received by automatic writing over a 70-year period, few of which, until recently, were available in English translations. Purchase your copy today at www.roundtablepublishing-uk.com. www.roundtablepublishing-uk.com.
The newest edition of the Medium's book by Allan Kardec is now available. Purchase your copy online or via your ebook reader. Simply go to www.ediciofamerica.com today.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Join us every Thursday live. Evolution in Two Worlds. A journey of the soul through the teachings of the Spirit Doctor, Andrea Luiz. Connect at www.tvcei.com, Channel 2.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Spiritism for Everyone, the online study of the Spirit's Book and the Gospel according to Spiritism. Spiritism for Everyone meets every Wednesday evening and Saturday morning using the latest technology in web conferencing. You can join in from any computer in the comfort of your home or office, no matter where you are in the U.S. or the world. Spiritism for Everyone is open, free, and requires no registration. To access the web live meetings, go to www.spiritus.us. Spiritism for Everyone is a program of the United States Spiritist Council.
And now we return to our program.
Welcome to our segment, Spiritism in Your Life. Today, we're going to discuss the following question. What do we need to do to prepare ourselves to receive a spiritual treatment or passes that are available to us in Spiritist centers? Is there anything we should do to prepare ourselves before that, ahead of time? The first thing is that we need to know what is happening. For us to understand that, we need to know what are healing passes. So healing passes, as defined by Emmanuel in the book O Consolador, question 98, is a transfusion of psychic energy. Or another definition in the domains of mediumship by Andrea Luiz is a transfusion of energy, altering the cellular field. And among many other definitions of passes, the one that summarizes them all is passes are above all a transfusion of love. That's by Divaldo Franco. We can understand now that passes are not miracles. Passes are not ritualisms, are not mysticism. Passes are a really complex and organized mechanism through which we can re-equilibrate the energy fields of the patient. And in summary, this transfusion of energy most oftenly occurs with the help of discarnate beings in combination with incarnate beings from the perispirit of the medium to the perispirit of the patient. Now that we understand what passes are, we need to prepare ourselves to take full advantage and receive all the benefits from it. And how do we prepare ourselves for it? So it is ultimately important for you to be receptive, to be open to receive these energies and this help. And what are the steps you need to go through in order to put yourself in a state where you allow this energy to be transfused? Number one, connect to God. The only way you're going to be able to receive help is that if you connect to the source of all this help. And that means connecting to God. You can connect to God through many ways, and the most direct way of communication is actually through prayer. Number two, clear your mind from your daily problems or any thoughts or ideas that might disconnect you from God. Number three, avoid any other activity that also might impair your ability to connecting to God and to concentrating on the good. Number four, you should also prepare your body. Avoid excesses, including but not restricted to drugs, alcohol, or food. Number five, work on your inner transformation, because no matter how many times you go through the treatment and how willing you are to receive treatment, if you don't change yourself, you're never going to be able to be fully healed, because that's the ultimate goal of a healing therapy, is actually to make you better person, to progress. In summary, you have to remember that you play an active role in this process. And in order for you to really receive the benefits, you have to work for it and prepare yourself for it. Another important question that normally people ask regarding passes and other spiritual treatments is, what happens afterwards? Am I really getting healed? Am I getting a positive effect out of it? The short answer is yes. We do receive benefits from every spiritual treatment. But again, we have to remember that this is not the short way out. This is just part of a process that if we do deserve it, you will receive the results you're seeking. Now, as for scientific evidence of it, Nobody and co-workers recently published systematic review on the complementary spiritist therapy, and they've shown that the laying of hands and therapeutic touch are associated with a significant reduction in pain and stress levels, although we're lacking studies that focus specifically on the passes done in spiritist centers. And also there are non-peer-reviewed reports that show that 70 to 90% of patients that are subjected to passes receive either physical or spiritual benefits. Or if you want to do some research yourself, just ask anyone that visited a spiritist center how they feel after receiving passes. Dear friends, we are now coming to the end of our segment. Thank you very much, and God bless us.
Dear listener, what a beautiful explanation. And let us bring now an excerpt from the book Among Brothers of Other Lands that talks about new method of healing, which comes from the spirit Kelvin Van Dyne and was psychographed by Chico Xavier in 1965 when he was in Washington, D.C. Chico Xavier visited the United States of America in 1965. And this spirit, who is an American, he said, there is a problem in the maintenance of balance and peace that demands reflection. It is the problem of improvement. In order for that to happen on the physical plane, we're perfecting medicine on earth since the Egyptians. The history of the science of healing is one of the most beautiful chapters in human history. Sacrifices, heroism, experiences, all has been done in order to heal infirmities and extinct handicaps, diminish trials, and extinguish organic calamities. Pharmaceutical labs, hospitals, and retreats have been called to the struggle, and any loved one fall ill, they receive our care and resources in order to recover as soon as possible. This is in regard to the body. What about what concerns the spirit? Listeners, he's talking about something he's going to explain to us right now, which is the healing of the soul. How often do we think about healing of the soul? Because when we talk about energy work, medicine, etc., we are talking about the healing of the soul. And he says, Kelvin Van Dyne, through Chico Xavier, says, what about the concerns of the spirit? The individual who gets sick of the viscera also falls sick in his or her mental mechanisms. There are vices of conduct as much as degeneration of the liver. If we provide remedy to the hepatic occurrences, why do we slap the mind of the individual in spiritual disturbance? If we have anesthesia to extract the cancerous formation, why don't we use forgetfulness to extinguish the obsessive process that aggravated itself to the pride and vanity, envy, or rebelliousness that one was filled in? Why not treating the one who offends as a sick person who is more in need of care than censure? If a friend appears spiritually deformed, be in the face of bitterness or uncharitableness, let us help him or her to get rebalanced. Let us immediately start with providence applied to the infirmed ones. Let us make them feel better. No one gives liquid fire to the bearers of gastric ulcer. We never readjust someone's heart with the flames of criticism. Let us clarify the difficult situations, correct mistakes, and establish the truth. But let us not exceed the limits of human goodness and the responsibility to live as a surgeon restores the lacerated organ without destroying it at knife strokes. Mistakes do exist, but let us experience a new method to heal mistakes. Let us make the one who makes a mistake feel better. Dear listener, isn't that amazing? It really makes our soul be rejuvenated when he says we all make mistakes. And the best way to heal our soul is to help the one who got to be infirmed to be healed as well. Now we ask you to join forces with us in this discussion that Brad Appling brings to us through Kardec Radio. For what purposes can spiritists use their mediumship faculties? As we said in a previous show, when we were talking to Dr. Sid Greenfield, quoting from the Spirit's book, the Illuminated Spirit said that mediumship is given to God by God to us for a very serious and useful reason. And this is to boost the progress of life. So Spiritism uses mediumship, one, to develop and educate this faculty that we all have. We need the school to develop it. And let's say spiritist centers are true schools for development of mediumship in a very safe and emotionally balanced purpose, but also to help others, to reach out to others who are obsessed, to help the people in our circles of life also to understand life at a greater perspective. Think about Chico Xavier. Chico Xavier, after 75 years of mediumistic work, he beautifully laid out a legacy, not only the 400 plus books, but his day-to-day charitable life. He really lived a life of an ordinary person in terms of, his work. He worked until he retired. But on his free time, he dedicated his life 100% to everybody else without distinction. He used his mediumship really to help other people. And dear listener, you know that there are people who come to spiritist centers and don't know what this is all about. Because spiritist centers can really help us tailor mediumship to the best of its use, to the most useful part of it. And in back issues of the Spiritist magazine, which you can access at the website, thespiritistmagazine.com, We have a beautiful interview that was done with Richard Simonetti that is about the Spiritist Center. And we even asked Richard Simonetti, what is a Spiritist Center and what are its main purposes? And he replied, the Spiritist Center is a legal entity that normally has two main objectives, the dissemination of the Spiritist science and the practical application of its principles in the social community. In regard to the latter, we highlight the practice of charity through all possible means within the reach of the center. This is the reason why Spiritist organizations usually provide social services. And this is the main reason for anybody who wants to study mediumship and practice it. The best and the safest way for you to do so is coming to a Spiritist Center. Divaldo Franco, Chico Xavier, Ivone Pereira, and Raul Teixeira, and many others. They are the most productive mediums of all times. There are no mediums on the planet Earth throughout the most ancient times that have been as productive as they were in terms of the books that were published, the charitable work that they have done, and we ask why. Because they aligned their mediumship to the principles of Spiritism. And this is not a dogma. This is actually a way to educate our faculty of mediumship. And you can be contesting this by saying, but you know what? I can do this at my house and it will do the same. Really? Do you think if you work on your PhD thesis in your home without going to the university, it's going to be the same? We don't think so. You need to go to educational establishments to actually make this happen. So that's why when we talk about mediumship, the best way to work on it and to make it be productive and safe is to go to specialized organizations such as the Spiritist Centers. There are no such things on the earth as we've got to know. And Spiritism is the one that brings the safest approach to work on mediumship. Safest and productive to the benefit of the general good. Dear listener, it's all about this inner journey. We are in the last part of our show. We're going to give the last break, and as soon as we finish it, we will come back with the last discussion on energy work, mediumship, and healing.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Available for purchase the book, This Obsession, psychographed by the medium Francisco Cândido Xavier. In this book, the spirit André Luiz recruits new groups of workers of goodness whose intent is to aid in the readjustment of those no longer in the physical plane. Learn more by purchasing your copy at www.sgny.org.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
Now in English, the book Action and Reaction by the Spirit André Luiz, psychographed by Chico Xavier. Buy your copy online or via your ebook reader. Go to www.ediceiofamerica.com today.
Come and enjoy the 5th Spiritist Society of Baltimore Forum entitled Honoring Life, which will take place on February 18th from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. at the Spiritist Society of Baltimore headquarters, where topics such as abortion, death penalty, collective karma, and much more will be discussed. For more information, go to www.ssbaltimore.org.
And now we return to our program.
Dear listener, we are here with a beautiful last part of the show. Don't go away. You know why? Because we're going to read to you something so special. It is entitled Developing Our Mediumship, and it's by the author in Brazil, Amilcar Del Chiaro Filho. And it was published in the issue 6 of the Spiritist magazine. You can go there and access our archive free of charge. And when you go there, you're going to get to know more how to develop mediumship. Do you want to know how? Well, we're going to open the line to, it's the 2009 edition of the Spiritist magazine. Kirsten DeMello is here with us, joining us, and she kindly will read this message to us, and then we're going to discuss a little bit with you. Hi, Kirsten.
Hi, Vanessa. Thank you for having me on the show today.
Thank you so much for making the suggestion, you and Daniel, to read this message and that we've published in the Spiritist magazine, and it's so beautiful. It gives so much enlightenment. Would you please lead the reading of this message so we can discuss a little bit more?
Sure. It's entitled, Developing Our Mediumship. If you want to develop automatic writing or psychography, begin by writing small notes of encouragement to family members, friends, and colleagues at work. Birthday cards, get well cards, and so forth. Then, start writing longer letters to chronically ill patients who live alone, prisoners, and others. Little by little, the good spirits will inspire you whenever you write. Maybe you will not publish bestsellers, but your writings will certainly be useful. If you would like to develop your speaking mediumship, begin talking about beautiful things. Do not curse or use irony. You should always have words of harmony, peace, and understanding. Comfort those who are suffering. Guide those who are lost. And soon, the good spirits will be by your side when you need to speak. Maybe you will not be a great orator, but you will be blessed by everyone. If you aspire to be a seeing medium, then observe the landscapes of nature. Value the smile of a child, the trembled steps of an aging woman. See the beauty of life and treasure it. Appreciate the nature, the natural beauty of the sky, the stars, the silvery light of the moon, and the golden light of the sun. If you would like to become a prescribing medium, begin by taking a needy person to the doctor. Take the prescription and buy the medication. This is a good beginning. Other ways will appear sooner or later. If, instead, you would like to heal people through the laying on of the hands, start by helping someone. Take care of an ill person. Talk to him or her. Make the person company. Read for the ill person. Sing a song, play an instrument, say a prayer. If you would like to develop your physical mediumship to materialize spirits, remember that incarnation on earth is the most beautiful and useful materialization of a spirit. Be a responsible, kind father or mother. Love your children and the children of others, especially the ones who suffer. Educate them and illuminate their lives with your love. If you would like to be a good spirit counselor or coordinator of spiritist mediums, learn to speak about the love of God, of goodness. Be optimistic and talk about optimism. Do not demand moral changes in others. Do not let yourself be enveloped in discouragement. Intensify your faith. Appreciate life. Love it. Try it. Maybe you will never become famous or have your name written in the newspapers, but you will find inner, irreplaceable satisfaction.
Wow. We're speechless. That's a beautiful message. That's one of the reasons why we published in the year 2009. And by the way, dear listener, the most recent issue of the Spiritist magazine is coming up very soon. The International Spiritist Council has found new art and design people to put it all together, and the latest editions are really coming about. You will probably receive an email very soon with access to the latest editions. So, Kirsten, thank you so much for reading that beautiful message to us, and it really tells us great insights about the spiritual laws of life and mediumship, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's very poetic and inspiring, and I believe that it's meant for it to be that way, to explain in a very simplistic way how we can begin to develop the matrix of our mediumship. And although it clearly states here, this is not a recipe for an ultimate perfection of our mediumship, but simply developing it to a point where it's useful for others. You know, Vanessa, when Kardec talks about mediumship in the opening pages of the Meetings book, when he talks about, you know, simply knowing the laws of music, of writing chords, doesn't make us great musicians, because anyone can pick up an instrument and begin to play, but it doesn't mean you're going to be a famous musician. But you can make nice music for others to listen to, and I believe likewise this is the message that Amilcar del Cairo Filho is trying to say to us, that we shouldn't anticipate that we're going to be great healing mediums that are throughout the media, but most importantly, just in our day-to-day lives, we can offer up support to one another. And I think that is the most important thing that this message is bringing, that we be productive and useful in our lives in a positive sense, right?
Yes, yes. And, you know, many people, as you said, they want to develop their mediumship. They want to educate it, and they think mediumship is absent from inner transformation. As you said in the segment, Spiritist Moment, it's totally connected with this inner journey of transformation and discipline. No wonder Emmanuel, as the mentor of Chico Xavier, clearly talked about the need of discipline. And he didn't say that once. He said discipline, 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 for several reasons, for sure. And when he says discipline, he's talking about this inner discipline, a discipline that pushes us really to meditate on how we should reach out to the ones that are closer to us. How can we go to a spiritist center, for example, and be a great healing medium if at home we're not helping our loved ones go to a pharmacy and buying their medication? I mean, it's really a paradox here. And how many mediums I've got to know, they curse their families and they say, oh, I love to reach out and help other people. I mean, it's really a paradox. And vibratorily speaking, it doesn't make any sense. So we really need to begin with our daily lives as the foundation for a good mediumship, right?
Yeah, and I think you mentioned something that is of utmost importance, is discipline. And I believe one of the reasons why the message is talking to us about, before you engage in a great commitment of mediumship, you know, first we need to show that we can be disciplined and committed in the very small aspects of our lives. Because as you just mentioned, oftentimes we have issues that in our own home life or our work life or our school life, and oftentimes perhaps we may separate that from our mediumship. But all things are connected. There's not life in the Spiritist Center and then my life outside. Everything is interconnected, whether we choose to really see it that way. Because, you know, whether the spirits are very elevated or less elevated, they can follow us, they can watch our deeds. So it's important for us also to always remember that we are an example for someone, as Joanna Gian just talks about in Happy Life. We're always being watched. Not that we should be paranoid, but use it as a opportunity to better ourselves, but also educate those that are around us. It's really something to reflect on, each one of us, right?
Exactly, Kirsten. And that's the reason why we want to invite our listeners now to exercise these, reaching out to others in our daily lives. How many people are suffering in our lives, Kirsten? And they often ask us, oh, please pray for me, and we just take it for granted. We're like, yes, I'll pray, but do we actually pray? Do we actually go home or stop at our workplace and really do like this inner reflection and inner communication with the Creator, saying, and sometimes as simple as this, dear all merciful Creator, please bless this person who is in my life or who has come to my life and asked for a prayer. I cannot judge whether this person deserves this or that, but as a child of yours, please bless this person. And this can really be very simple, but we actually do it, right?
Right, absolutely. And for those of us who perhaps have an issue struggling with when people come to them to pray for them and they wind up forgetting later or just, don't think about it or whatever the case may be, one thing that they can do is they can pray immediately. Prayer doesn't need to be elaborate. We don't need to kneel down or do it in front of others. We can find a quiet time, just a few moments, a few minutes if you are at work, and just take some time, go to a closed area where no one's around, and just take a few moments to pray briefly, lifting up our thoughts to God in a humble prayer. And exactly like you said, God, I don't know what is in this person's heart. I don't know the whole story, but you do, so we just ask that they be assisted. Prayer doesn't have to be anything elaborate. It just has to come from the heart and humility, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and those small acts of kindness really do help us as well. The other people, they help us out, but they also help our own moral transformation.
Exactly. So thank you so much, Kirsten, for bringing that message, you and Daniel. And we are going to invite our listeners now to a final moment of prayer. Dear listener, praying is nourishment for the soul. It's a good opportunity for all of us to really connect at higher levels until one day our actions will be true prayers. Because prayer is communication with God, and when we are aligned with God, we are praying. So this is a prayer that we're going to dedicate to these reflections of the program. And join forces with us right now, wherever you are. Let us pray together. Because even if you're listening to this show after hours, also stop at this moment and pray. Because Kardec dedicated the last chapter of the Gospel According to Spiritism, chapter 28, for a collection of prayers, Spiritist prayers, he says. And he says there are prayers for people who are suffering and ask for prayers. And this is a good way to practice mediumship. We're talking about energy work and mediumship. Are we really being compassionate and kind and really devoting our lives to other people? So let us join ourselves right now and follow Kardec's leadership in this beautiful prayer for others who ask for prayers. All forgiving and merciful God, may your goodness extend over all spirits who ask for our prayers, especially for the souls of the specific people who have recently asked us to pray for them. Good spirits, whose only concern is to do good, intercede with us for the consolation of these people. Make a ray of hope shine on their eyes, and may the divine light enlighten them regarding the imperfections that keep them from the dwelling place of the blessed. Open their hearts to repentance and the desire to purify themselves to hasten their advancement. Enable them to understand that through their efforts they may shorten the time of their trials. May God, in His goodness, give them the strength to persevere in their good resolutions. May these benevolent words soften their suffering by showing them that there are people on the earth who sympathize with them and desire their happiness. Oh, dear listener, it feels like a renewing, refreshing wave breeze of the beyond blessing all of us, and we wish you really many blessings. In a week when we come, we're going to have a very special show, something we have never talked about, which is music, healing, and spirits. Can you believe the classical composers of classical music, they were actually mediums and inspired by the forces of the beyond? You want to know more? Do you also want to know how much music can provide healing and change even our DNA? Well, Our dear friends Fred Gouveia and Marco Magalhães are going to be here in a week to tell us about the whole 9 yards of music healing and spirit composers and the classical composers as well. And we hope that you join us and share the good news. After all, Kardec Radio is here to nourish our souls. May God bless us all, and we see you in a week.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.